Welcome to Caliente Topics. This is your daily tax webcast. I'm your host, Veronica Russell from MMTAXMAN.com, and I have Patrick Russell, EA, from MMTAXMAN.com as well. And we're going to follow up with the workers' compensation information, right, Patrick?
Very good, Veronica. Good morning, everybody. So we're going to continue the conversation that we started on our previous webcast regarding workers' compensation. Yeah. Now, the one thing that we didn't highlight, and in fact, I want to, you know how I like to bring in military terms, I want to tighten up my shot group on what I had said before. When it comes to the taxability of proceeds you might have went through a lawsuit, quick question for you, Veronica. Compensation you receive from a physical injury and sickness, aka workers' compensation, is that taxable?
It's not taxable, therefore no forms to claim on your taxes.
Very good. So, Chapter 26 of the U.S. Code, Section 104, subsection A, does highlight specifically workers' compensation as proceeds that could be excluded from your taxable income, basically left out, if you will. Now, what's the biggest complaint, Veronica, that we usually have to field, even though it's kind of outside the field of taxes? What's the biggest complaint that we usually hear from clients who are going through their own workers' compensation case?
The time, the sensitive time, it takes between a year, 2, 3, 4 years. It all depends what type of case and how aggressive it is per se.
Very good. Now, even though there is obviously some contentions and going back and forth depending on the circumstances of every case, by and large, we usually are having to deal with a broken-hearted client for 2 tax seasons. Usually, before that, the 3rd tax season, they have some resolution, some settlement. It usually is done and ended, and we hear what the results. Sometimes great. Sometimes, usually, to be honest with you, very underwhelming, especially when you talk about the emotional time and energy invested in what was usually a 2.5-year odyssey. Yeah. It does make, unless we're one of these very fortunate recipients of the big payouts, $1 million or more, you do seem to feel like it was all much ado for nothing, especially then when you also factor in a large chunk of that then goes, of course, to the attorneys, typically 40%, depending on how big your settlement is. The bigger the settlement, likelihood, the bigger the rate that you're paying off to the attorney in most cases, but just 40% is typically standard operating procedure. And so the next thing that I wanted to make sure that the audience knew is, remember how we said that workers' compensation, at least in California, Arizona, where we operate, have payroll and also have clients that have payroll.
Yeah.
What happens if an employer is a risky employer, somebody that runs an operation that has a lot of typical payouts in workers' compensation, and maybe the employer themselves kind of has a spotty record?
Yeah.
But we had said before, all employers need to have workers' comp. Where does the risky employer go?
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a little bit more information, independent insurances are going to give you a headache, a lot of hard time to be able to get insurance through them just because you are considered a high-risk company, right? True. So every state, in this case, we're going to talk about California and Arizona, you can go through the state fund insurance, which is the general insurance that most of the companies will qualify, and you can apply through them.
Right. Both California and Arizona do participate in a state-funded insurance compensation organization, a marketplace, basically a player at the table that a risky employer, when everybody else has shut their doors in your face, but you're still legally operating and have payroll, and employees that absolutely require the insurance coverage of workers' compensation, you always have the safety net, if you will, because it is the law, so the state had to provide you with that option. There's a state option for you. Now, although we won't speak too much to the pricing, generally speaking, would you say that the state-funded option is cheaper or more expensive than the private insurance carriers?
It is about the same. The only benefit is that the state-funded insurance organization, it has the flexibility to, even if you have a high-risk company, they can still qualify you, right?
Absolutely. They have to open up their doors to everyone, no doubt.
A private insurance it's usually like if you obviously driving a car, you have an accident, a crash, and then now the next renewal is going to be more expensive. So private insurances tend to do that, and it happens obviously all the time. So that's kind of how it works.
Well, final note, that might be a revelation to certain young entrepreneurs that are now jumping into the insurance game because they need insurance. You'll realize insurance companies can say no to you. And so at some point, I mean, if you do fall into that category as a risky employer, but you absolutely still need to find some insurance, sometimes you're forced into the state-funded option. But once again, the prices are comparable, so you're still kind of in the same boat as everybody else. Guys, a quick way to get a quick answer is to use the comment box below. Send us your quick question. Don't just subscribe to the show, even though we will be doing this daily pro bono tax workshop every day. Great job. But lend your voice to this show to make it a whole lot more fun. Guys, no matter what happens to you today, no matter what obstacles or challenges you may face, you just need to remember one thing.
Give 'em hell.
Have a great day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.